Welcome to IBBA Insights, providing expert advice on buying or selling small businesses. IBBA Insights is presented by the International Business Brokers Association, the world's largest nonprofit organization for those helping others sell or buy businesses. Now, here's your host, Chris Diglio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episodes of IBBA Insights. Today's episode is going to be a little more special for me than others, and you'll find out why in just a minute. If you're a business owner, a business broker, if you're in the restaurant industry, or if you're someone that's just trying to find their career path in life, today's guest is going to inspire you. She's also going to help you. She epitomizes the saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. I was originally going to do this episode on the restaurant industry, but today's episode is going to be so much more than restaurants. And what you hear is going to be insightful and inspirational, no matter what industry you're in. My guest today is someone that I've known since grade school. She's a celebrity chef and a famous restaurateur. She's appeared regularly on the Food Network as a judge on the Iron Chef America, The Next Iron Chef, Guy Fieri's Tournament of Champions. She's a regular contributor on Good Morning America and the Today Show. Her restaurants have received 4 stars from Forbes, the 5 Diamond Award, and a Michelin star rating. She's also an author and a lifestyle brand. Oh, by the way, she's also a wife and a mother of 3 beautiful children. Basically, my guest is Wonder Woman. I'd like to welcome to IBBA Insights, Donatella Arpaia. Donatella, welcome to the show. So what's new?
Oh boy, what's new? You know, I'm a Miami girl now. I've been here for 5 years. So summer is coming, the end of the school year. We're wrapping up, and I'm actually trying to, for the first time, really make some travel plans, because I think it's really, really important for the soul and for the kids to get your creative juices going and take a break, because I've kind of been locked in for 5 years. We moved, then I had the babies, then COVID happened. So I'm ready to travel.
So you went from New Yorker to now you're a Floridian. I mean,
Floridian. I know. We were lucky though, because we kind of, all my friends, when we decided to move, because I was like the iconic New York girl.
You were the queen of New York, labeled the queen of New York.
I was the queen of New York. I opened my first restaurant when I was like 26. Yeah. And I stayed there, my whole career in life. And I'm like the iconic New Yorker. I love New York. Yeah. It was great for me. But, I had a son and he was 6 years old. And then I found out a little later in life that I was having twins. And my husband and I kind of felt we got the itch that it was kind of time for a change. So we did a high, we kept our apartment, we rented it, and we rented in Miami because we didn't know if it was going to be, it's a big move to make. But we did, and then the pandemic hit, and we were lucky because then New York came. Miami's now the new New York, so yeah. Except it's hot.
Very hot.
Very hot.
So we're going to have fun today because we're having basically a little family reunion here. So this is, yes. But I want to share your story with everybody because it is, I said it 3 times already, inspirational, but I had you come to the IBBA conference a number of years ago and you shared it. And today we'll talk about the restaurant business, but let's talk about the beginnings. I know the restaurant business is in your blood. You want to share your family's history in the restaurant business?
Sure. So I'm the daughter of 2 immigrant parents. My father was born in the city of Naples and my mother was born in Bari, which is the lower part. And they came to this country like many immigrants during that time, post-war, with nothing. And my father started as a waiter in the famed Delmonico restaurant and became a restaurateur quite young. And I literally grew up in the restaurant business. So I grew up in Woodmere, Long Island, and our home was right next to his restaurant. So my backyard was the kitchen. So my kitchen was my playground. And I grew up in the restaurant business. I was the youngest of 3 children. And I was told that in life I could be whatever I want, except I wasn't going to go in the restaurant business and it should be a lawyer or a doctor. And I think, as children of first-generation immigrants, we share that story where the parents come, they work hard, and they want the kids to have a better life. So I thought I wanted to be a lawyer because that's what my dad like inculcated into my mind. And I went to St. John's Law, I passed the bar, and I started practicing. And a few months later, I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do. And so I had my aha moment when I was at my brother's restaurant, Cellini. See, I'm plugging my brother's restaurant, and it's still there to this day. And he was groomed for the restaurant business, being the male eldest child. And I was eating at his restaurant for free, of course, after a day of work. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think this is what I want to do. I saw the path, become a partner, and I was doing corporate law. And I was like, but if I know that this is not what I want, what am I doing? And I told my dad that, and he was not so excited about that decision after spending, paying for my entire education. But he said, well, if this is what you want to do, then be the best at it. And so I opened my first restaurant in Midtown Manhattan called Bellini on 52nd Street. And I was kind of, the ignorance or bliss of youth. I was pretty bold and clueless in retrospect, and naive, but very passionate and driven. And I said I was going to do it. So I got a loan, and it was a failed location, and I just really, really was driven to work really, really hard. And I opened my first restaurant, Bellini. And back then, I know the world has changed. I mean, I had only men working for me. There were no women in fine dining in any capacity. People don't realize that. So I was an anomaly back then. I was young, beautiful, former attorney, and running this restaurant. And, that's how my journey began.
So you have a
That's
passion.
a lot of information.
No, that's
Yeah.
a lot. That's a good first question, right? A good answer. But you were a lawyer, right? But the restaurant business was in your blood, but it sounds like it was your love and what you wanted to do, but you weren't always a celebrity chef, right?
Yeah.
Although you were in the restaurant business forever, but you carved out quite a name for yourself in New York. You go from the hostess with the mostest to the meatball queen to being named one of Crane's 40 under 40 to New York Post naming you one of the 50 most powerful women in New York City. So can you talk about the early days? What made you successful and how did you get noticed and rise in popularity?
Sure. You're making me blush, Chris. With all these accolades, I don't know who that is, but I think that, well, first of all, many people in the restaurant business aren't formally educated. I think that was an advantage because I think the law teaches you how to think in a certain way. So I had a very circuitous path. So I grew up in the business. So I understood the reality of the restaurant business. I think a lot of people have romantic notions of the restaurant business. I understood the reality of it. I understand how hardworking. I was attracted to it basically because, for me and being Italian, and I spent every summer in Italy, being around family and food was my happy moments. So I think there was something calling me to hospitality. I think that I was not afraid to be different. And, I remember in the beginning, I didn't even know how to dress in my restaurant because I had these legal suits. As a woman, you don't even know how to dress as an owner. And I was like, let me wear a suit because I have to be busy and I have to be serious and I have to be taken seriously. And, back then it was before political correctness. There was no political correctness. I mean, I could read even earlier reviews about me where I was completely objectified and, treated differently out in the open. And at sometimes my femininity or being a female, sorry, that's my dog, worked to my advantage. And sometimes it didn't. I can only tell you that I had a very thick skin. And no matter what people said to me, I wasn't afraid to be different. I didn't care what people said about me. I cared, but I didn't let it impact me. I had a very tough skin. And even with my father, who was a traditional restaurateur, and it was before the advent of the Food Network, where the restaurateur was the star, not the chef. I was also not afraid to try different things. And I also, I think, had an innate understanding of front of house hospitality and marketing and PR. And so I really treated customers really well, grassroots, old-fashioned marketing. And I started to cook food that was very regional and authentic and different. And so I think by doing that, I started making a name for myself. But it was, I worked nonstop, and like when you care about something so much, I think that passion comes through. And I had, I became like a local neighborhood favorite. It wasn't like the fame came right away.
Well, weren't you also known for getting your way around the city on your Vespa?
On my Vespa, and then my yellow Lamborghini. Yes.
Yes. The Vespa first, later on comes the Lamborghini.
That's right. Yes. Yes, that was a crazy moment. I went around on my Vespa. And then, so I was a lawyer. I started in the front of the house. And then my second restaurant, David Burke and Donatella, I branched out of Italian cuisine, and I had the audacity to put my name, Donatella, on it, where my friend, David Burke, was like, he was well known. I wasn't. People thought it was Donatella Versace's restaurant, and they thought I was the co-check girl because I was this young girl in the front of the house. So, but I kind of liked being underestimated all the time. That actually drove me even more. And I had an ability to really understand the press and tell a story. It was like the beginning of the brand story. And then I had the courage, thank God. I mean, I had a crippling, people don't realize this, crippling stage fright. Even to communicate in law school or being called on was something that was terrible for me. And so I think that I thankfully had the courage to fight that, because a whole other career happened because of it, with the advent of the Food Network. And that wasn't expected. Back then, like people like Bobby Flay, my peers, we were restaurateurs first, and we started doing TV as a way to get people into our restaurant. We didn't know that this was going to become, a whole career in and of itself. So
you had
thank
a
God
baptism by fire, right?
Yeah.
You were either going to get comfortable being on TV or run the risk of maybe not being where you're at today.
100%.
But it had to be hard.
It was hard. I would throw up all the time. I would take classes. I was so awkward. I was, I had a phobia. And then one day it just went away, and people asked me, how did that happen? And I think that the trick is, it sounds cliche, but cliches are true often. I had the courage to, despite my crippling fear, do it. And to be uncomfortable until the uncomfortable became comfortable. And one day I was just boom. Then I was comfortable in that medium, and then a whole other career happened because of it. So thank God. Yeah.
It's hard going from being shy and introverted to have to be an extrovert, and people will look at you and think, oh, wow, she's just a natural. She's comfortable in front of the camera, and they have no idea how difficult that can be. I've always been shy by nature, and people that know me later in life, they don't believe that because they'll see me at networking events and I'm like, oh no, give me a choice. I'd rather sit in the corner of the room with the one person I really know and speak to them than to have to mingle with everybody. It's not easy.
No, it's not. I mean, for some people it is, but for me, it was not. My husband is a natural in front of the camera. It annoys me, but I'm like, really? But yeah, for me, it was not. But like I said, doing the things that you're not great at or uncomfortable at, there's an opportunity for a beautiful story to develop. So for me, that was it. And that's how the Food Network came calling. And then after my, David Burke and Donatella, when David Burke and Donatella opened, it opened to tremendous success very early on. It was like the #1 rated restaurant in New York. I was quite not prepared for that success. I went from more mom and pop to more corporate, and I had to learn. And then by my third restaurant, when I was really doing well, and I was on the Food Network and I was everywhere, I decided to go full-time quietly to culinary school, to become a chef by trade. And
Let me
no
ask
one
you
really
about
knew
that,
that I
Dontel,
was doing
because
that or why I was doing it. They thought it was nuts.
let me ask you about that, because this was on my list, and this what I think embodies you as a person or an individual and goes towards your drive. I mean, you clearly have a passion for the business and what you do, and a burning desire. It seems to be successful, but even as successful as you were with your restaurants, you're right, you decided to go to culinary school. Why did you do that when you were already a success? Clearly, you didn't have to, but in your mind, you did.
I did it because I wanted to master all sides of my field. And also, to be frank, I didn't want to be beholden to chefs.
Yeah.
They tended to be egomaniacal, and I didn't want to, I wanted to, I didn't want to start cooking onions and work behind the line. But I wanted to know that if I needed to kick somebody out, I could. And they needed to know that too, because I became very successful. And, like I said, partnerships can be tricky sometimes. And all of a sudden there was a lot of fame coming, but like not having that power, I thought was hurting me and was going to prevent me from further growth. And I'm a student at heart. I like to approach things and I like to study and learn new things all the time. So I did go to culinary school, and I remember I was like 30 and there were kids next to me like, didn't I see you on TV last night? What the hell are you doing here? And I was like, and also I knew a lot about food already. Sure. It's not like I didn't, but I just liked the formality and the structure of a teaching environment. I wanted that degree, and and like I said, that also opened up so many other doors in the future. So it was painful in the moment, but I think definitely a right decision that led to many, many other opportunities, because the chef became everything. Like, whereas when my father started, the restaurateur was the star. Now the chef is the star. This was, before the celebrity chef, or it was just at the advent of the celebrity chef. So I like to, understand, and I love food. I love recipe development. I love food. So it was definitely, I went to the French Culinary Institute, Italian Culinary Academy, giving a plug, and I enjoyed it. It was great.
Speaking about food, now I'm going to ask you a couple of fun, well, maybe tough questions, not really. But when you're a judge on these shows and someone puts in front of you food that maybe you don't necessarily like, or something you wouldn't regularly eat, how do you deal with that? Because that would, to me, be difficult, because you're judging on how well they prepare the plate or the dish and how it tastes. But what if it's something that's just something you don't like?
Well, I hate lamb, but that's not the person's fault who's cooking it. And I think being a lawyer makes me a uniquely qualified judge. And I think that's why I became one of the head judges of, Iron Chef America, Next Iron Chef, because I have the ability to look at both sides. There's a difference between liking something and judging based on what's put in front of me. And I think I'm doing a disservice to the chefs that I respect very much, that are working really hard under a very difficult environment, cooking in a timed environment for TV where, they make the situation difficult. It's disrespectful to the chef to put my own preferences in it. So I judge it based on what's in front of me. And when you're dealing with like Iron Chef America, where I'm dealing with the top chefs like Morimoto and Bobby and Michael Simon, when you're dealing with that level anyway, I have to answer to these guys that know me and my friends, and at least they respect that I know what I'm talking about and I judge what's in front of me. Because, Bobby can have a bad day or burn something, or someone else, at least they know they're being judged for that, and I think they respect me for that, and vice versa. A lot of these other food competition shows, where it's more about the drama, and not really about the food, that gets a little crazy. I think that when you're a young chef, just being on these shows are great no matter what, but it's really heartbreaking for me when I have to, when I see them go home. But I try to encourage them and say, you already made it on the stage, so you're you're already promoting yourself, and there's got to be a winner and a loser. Although the producers tend to edit me to be, I could be judging something for an hour and then they edit just the tough part. So I often am told when people meet me, like, oh, you're so much nicer than I thought you'd be. And I'm like, why are people saying that I'm nice? Like, I guess they think that I'm like the Simon of the critics. I don't know. That I have no control how I get edited, but.
Yeah, you do a great job. I
Thank
might be a little biased, but you do a great job. So
thanks.
now a tough one for you. So you're known for your wonderful cuisine, but in New York City, you were voted the best meatballs, but you're also known for being involved with some amazing pizza. So what's more near and dear to your heart, meatballs or pizza? Or is that like asking you, what child do you love the best?
Yeah, that's tough. I grew up, my father's from Naples, so the birthplace of pizza. And I literally remember, and I don't know if this happens to you, I think it happens to everyone, where you can, and that's what I love about food, you can take a bite of something and have a sense memory. And I remember, living in Long Island and then going to Naples and having my first bite of Neapolitan pizza and like thinking it was the most beautiful thing I ever ate in the world. Now the meatballs, I have the memories, my mother since passed, but like of every Sunday, her making those meatballs too. So that's, I have these very specific memories of my childhood and those happy moments. So I would say I am the meatball queen, but I am a lover of pizza. I studied under the famous Enzo Coccia. He's a famous pizzaiolo in Naples, and I spent time there. And I am the brand ambassador for Galbani cheese, which is the #1 cheese of Italy, and now they're selling here. So I get to create all these recipes with all this amazing cheese. It's hard. I think the answer is a meatball pizza, Chris. Don't make me choose.
See, I was going to say that wasn't nice of me, and I apologize. My family also comes from Naples, but when I asked you that question, I'm like, she's not going to tell me, because that's like asking what child do you love better?
Which
It's
twin do
not
I
fair.
like better?
Well,
yeah. I mean, have you had Neapolitan pizza?
Oh yeah. I mean, people think they have I don't want to mention names. They have the generic pizza that's out there, right? They go, oh, this is great pizza. Oh, you have no idea what you're talking about.
No, pizza is like one of the oldest foods, and it really is a science. Like, I think it's such a approachable, everyday food. They don't realize there's such artistry and chemistry in pizza. I'm actually about to launch soon. I don't know if I should announce this yet, my own frozen pizza line that I'm very excited about, which more details to come. So,
well, congratulations. We won't tell anybody. So
thank you.
You mentioned something, you mentioned mothers. In an Italian household, the mother is everything. And, you lost your mom, I've lost my mom, but there's times when my wife is making one of my mother's recipes and that smell will bring me back and more the memory of my mom in the kitchen with my grandmother and the family. I miss my mother dearly, but that brings it all back and never goes away.
It never goes away. And I think that's something that is more rare today, with the advent of technology and busy schedules. People don't sit down and eat together anymore. And it's something that I really try to enforce. I can't do it every day, but as much as possible, sitting down, talking to each other, it's nice. I think that we had it was really special. I mean, I was never allowed to make plans on Sunday because it was the only day that my dad was off. So my mom was cooking all day and we were home with the family, and, the meal was an event on Sunday. It started at 3. And I think all of our friends secretly wanted to always get invited to a Sunday Italian meal. And I think that that's something that as an adult, then we look back at and then we want to recreate, because it was special. It's about being together.
I still have, our good friend Ralph, right? Ralph still says, I can't ever forget, going to your house on Sundays, because it was an event. But what he specifically also remembers were the Christmas Eve, eat fests. You start And then, midnight, we go to midnight mass. And then since then, it now is midnight, we come back and then we can eat meat. So there came the Italian sausage and the meatballs. And he was like, how do you guys do this? I said, well, that's why I'm not a very skinny person, but it is, food is just part of the culture and the family. And always brings us all together. So
Yes, it does. And then we fight about the food and argue and, who does it better and who doesn't. And so it's part of, the drama of the Italian family, which I love.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is true. We've talked about the Italian family. We've talked about women in business. At the IBBA, they created a network called IWEN. It's the Women's Empower Her network that's centered around the challenges and opportunities women face in the business brokers. But when you began your career, you openly said a male-dominated business. Is it still that way today? Do females, do women still get the same obstacles or different?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, Chris. I would say I spoke incorrectly. When I opened, it wasn't male dominated. It was all male. There literally was no females. I mean, and in a way that made me stand out. So I thought, I always saw it as, you can play the victim or see something as an opportunity. And I definitely have tough skin. I mean, the restaurant business, it's like there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in the restaurant business. And I definitely tend to be harder on the females because I knew what it was like for me. And like a mom, I want to make them tough. So I tend to be a little tougher on my females that I'm mentoring, which I really enjoy doing. I think that it is still hugely male dominated, but there are a lot more women today. And I think they really are incredible. There's a lot of talented female chefs, a lot of talented female celebrity chefs. I do think that I was always denied a seat at the table, and there's a lot of that occurs all the time, even dealing with networks, with brand deals. Although when the Me Too movement came, all the chefs were going down and all the brands thought I was more safe at that moment. It is a struggle that, and now that I have a daughter who's a female, it's something that I think about a lot. And my goal is to empower her to have the confidence. And my father, I think that father-daughter relationship is really important, instilled in me from a very young age to educate myself and to never give away your power. And it bothers me today that people like me and other women have paid a big price, and that there are a lot more opportunities out there today. And it bothers me when I see females, young females today on social media, completely objectifying themselves. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're beautiful, you're smart, and it's hard to watch that we've moved forward in so many ways. And then a lot of the press and media and these females are feeling like the only thing that sells is sex online. And that saddens me. And I'm hoping that they realize their worth inside, and that you can be a mother, you can be feminine, you can be nurturing, and you can still be tough. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Yeah, I was bothered by the fact that, because I was so driven and worked, that people assumed that I didn't want to be a mother, or that I was, choosing one or the other. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. I waited to get married because I kept choosing the wrong guys. So it had nothing to do with anything else. But I don't think it needs to be mutually exclusive. I think you can be a working woman, and I think you can be a full-time mom, and that's fine too. And I completely respect that. Yeah.
I don't even know what to say after that, because that's really is such sound advice for those that are out there, the females, how to overcome the things that are there, and not to maybe give in to what the stereotypes are. And, easy for me to say, or difficult for me to say, because I'm a male, so I don't walk in those shoes. I didn't face those challenges. I don't know what that's like, but to hear your point of view and your version on it, and how it even affects you as being a trailblazer, to women, and leading a movement, to being a role model to the young women that are the females that are up and coming, I could see where you would be more difficult on them. I mean, it's no different than, well, I shouldn't say no different. It's like growing up working for my father. He was always more difficult on me because he expected more out of me and didn't wanted me to set a certain example. When you look at up and coming females in your industry or wherever, and you want them to be strong and
Yes.
and carve their own way.
Yes, and I want them. I didn't have a mentor. There was maybe one female restaurateur that was much older, and frankly, they weren't very nice to me. They saw me as competition. And I think that females, to their discredit, are pitted against each other, or they see each other as competition, especially when beauty is an important factor in life, and more so for females. It just is the reality of life. So I was a young, pretty girl. They saw me as competition, so they immediately categorized me as that, and that was it. And I didn't have anyone to mentor me except for my father, and that was it. And I think that I look to mentor and to foster community. And I think that if females, move forward and try to help each other, then we are going to become more powerful, instead of the, all boys club. It can be the all girls club. And the she economy is becoming extremely powerful. There's money to be made with women. We are the decision makers. We're the ones making the reservations. We're the ones often buying and planning. And it's always been a neglected, population. And I think more and more, as we get in the positions of power and on these board seats, it's changing, and they're pretty incredible. Females, we know how to multitask. So I always look for a mom is always somebody I think is going to be a great employee because she knows how to multitask.
You don't want to stereotype people, but I've always, when I've done hiring in my lifetime, I try very hard not to look at, male, female, color of skin, really almost really look at the resume first before even reading a name. So if there's anything in your head that may put you in a direction which shouldn't be, you're really looking at the qualification of the person. But you're so right. I mean, my mother, when I was young, she taught me how to cook and clean and do all sorts of things. And I asked her why one day. She said, because I don't know that you're ever going to find anyone that's going to put up with you, because Italian household, a little bit of male chauvinist going on that's gone. Because my wife Tammy is, I think, beat that out of me. Not literally. Well, I can't say that, but it's it is so true. And I have a daughter and I have a granddaughter, and I want the very best of them. I don't want them to fall underneath anyone. I want them to be the leaders and feel that they can lead and do whatever they want in life. So thank you for the message that you put out there, and the standards that you hold up, and wanting to be a mentor to other females.
I think, like you said, it's better to foster community instead of competition. And I like to, I hate to say this, but in general, like why can't we be nice to each other? Why can't we be, forgiving and look at things that way and try and mentor, as opposed to right away going to attacking, which you see all the time. I mean, I literally don't read any of the comments on social media. I decided a long time ago not to do that because I get attacked all the time. And it's fine. It's part of it. I don't care. I also get a lot of compliments, but it's sad. This is our world we live in today. Everyone's commenting online, and no one really knows. So you just have to kind of chart your own course and try and do good every day. And like I said, I was objectified. I was propositioned. All these things happened. The difference was, to me, there was always I had such a strong sense of self that it was never gonna, I never was a victim. And I just used that fuel to become more successful. But doors were closed, and I just found a window to open and kept going. And it's true, the best revenge is success and living a good life.
Well, I've known you for a while, and you may have found a window that was open, but something tells me you took the high heels and you more like kicked the door open rather than allowing yourself to be locked out.
Probably. Probably.
We've talked about this. You're a mother, a wife, a business owner, a brand, and a restaurateur, celebrity chef. How do you juggle all of that?
I mean, anyone who says it's so easy and they have it all figured out, I think is full of baloney. It's a proper, nice way. I think it's really hard, but it's super important as you get older to really try and prioritize and focus, because we live in a world where there's just so much information and so busy, where you can be so busy you don't even know what you're doing with your day. So I really try to learn to say no to things now, which I wasn't good at doing. I would say yes, yes, yes all the time, and realize that the biggest commodity in life is your time. The time is one of the most important things. You can never get it back. And so I really try to be present in the moment. So when I'm with my kids or at, their little graduation, I'm shutting off my phone and I'm putting an appointment in it and I'm focusing on them. And when I'm focusing on work, I'm focusing on work. And I also let my kids know that mommy does work and that that's something important to me. And they've grown up with a working mom. And it's not something that I'm ashamed about or hide behind, but I think it's about prioritizing and resting and taking care of yourself. Since moving to Florida, health has become something that I've really focused on. So I try to exercise almost every day. So yeah, things like that, balancing, cutting negativity out of your life, cutting things out of your life and prioritizing what's important. And sometimes it doesn't always work. So sometimes some things sway one way or another, and then you have to swing it back. So I think it's constantly balancing, trying to balance it out, doing the best you can, and forgiving yourself when you don't get it right.
That's important. Forgiveness is important. It's easy to be difficult on ourselves. And I can't believe I did this. I can't believe that happened. I often tell people that's not what you should be sorry about. You should be sorry if you don't learn from that and you continue to do it again and again and again, because we're all going to make mistakes. I'll probably make 3 or 4 more today somewhere along the line, but just try not to do the same thing again. But being that role model for your children with the full, strong family support that you have with your husband, being a unified front, but being able to show them it's okay to fail, because when you fail, you're gonna get up again, and you're gonna be even better than what you were before. You learn a lot from failures in life.
Yep. And structuring your life in a way that's conducive to, prioritizing. And, I always say to the young people that are working hard, and my young chefs where the other kids are partying, I'm like, you're either going to pay now or pay later. I'm like, when I was young, all my friends post-college were partying and I was working like a dog. And now I am in a more comfortable situation. I had my kids later in life. I can afford help. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that, if I mop the floor, it makes me a better mom or not a better mom. So, and I've built my life in a way where, I can take my kids to school because it's very close. So I've made strategic decisions to support that. And, having a supportive team, it takes a village, and having a supportive husband that's on the same page and that's comfortable with me working, because he's doing something incredible too, like heart surgery. So
Yeah, something minor, right? I mean,
yeah,
he's
so annoying. I can never get annoyed with him when he's late. I can't get annoyed with him when he's late because he's saving somebody's life.
Yeah, that would make you a not so nice person. How dare you save that person's life when I had dinner on
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so I think, like you said, it's about trying every day to show up to the people that you love, prioritizing them, and trying to keep the balance, and rechecking and knowing when you need to rest. And I think rest and play is really important, because I'm a very driven person. So like I really am looking for unstructured time this summer with my kids, and we still have our lake house back in Connecticut. So just love to just be there and shut off all digital technology and rest, because I think it makes you better at business when you come back too.
You have to rest, you have to take time, you have to refresh in order to
Yeah.
be able to be strong and go forward.
Yeah.
We have some restaurant owners that are more than likely listening to the show. We have a big contingent of that in the IBBA. So let's talk about the restaurant industry today. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing today?
I mean, well, obviously, the rising cost of goods are just insane. You know this because you know what it is just to go grocery shopping every week. So imagine that. And then, the advent of digital marketing, which is so expensive, and we are forced to use all these platforms, whether it's Open Table or Toast POS, all these platforms just to be a player, and there's very little room for profit. So really being on the forefront of that when it's a constantly changing dynamic. And also, everyone's a reviewer today.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with Yelp. You're dealing with, when I opened my first restaurant here in Miami, I had Yelp, which was reviewing me based on an old restaurant, and they didn't know or didn't like the fact that I moved in, and I had people reviewing me that didn't even come to my restaurant. So you have all these things that you don't have control over anymore, and you have to kind of try and manage that and see how to function. It is really, really, the restaurant business was always hard. Now it's almost impossible, and that's why you see very few mom and pop restaurateurs opening up, and it's all these big corporate groups that have so much money to ride these waves. It's very difficult. I don't mean to sound doom and gloom. I've been doing this a long time. I really know what I'm doing, and it's really, really hard. It's really hard. Really hard.
That is the one thing I do miss about New York. Everything in Florida is so very scattered and far away. New York, you can go from town to town to town, and there's a great Italian restaurant, a great Chinese restaurant. You want bagels, there's great, you want pizza. You name it. It was so diverse and so easy to get to, and a lot of them. And Florida is a little bit of a different market. It's a little bit of a different market.
But do you know that New York has changed dramatically? It's not my New York anymore. It's
No.
a lot of especially New York City. They made it impossible for the small guy to survive. So all these great, ethnic chefs that would come from their country and open a little hole in the wall, it was impossible to survive. So you don't see that great culinary city that once was, and I hope that it returns. And I think New York is very resilient.
Yeah.
And I think it will. We are, not to get political, but we're in an election year. So no matter where you stand on politics with an election year, there's a lot of insecurity. So I do think that surviving the summer is important for me. Florida is extremely seasonal. So for me, it's about cutting my costs immediately and being reactive and focusing on digital marketing. But I do think that after the election, there will be maybe a little bit of life again next season.
It happens every election cycle, right before the election, months leading up to it. The private equity groups, money seems to slow down sometimes a little bit. They want to see who's going to be in office, but then it's amazing. Someone wins, someone loses, and then life goes on, and
Right.
it's back to normal again. You talked about rising food costs and some of the challenges in the restaurant business, but also one of the biggest challenges is also labor. So how important is it to create the right culture in your restaurant, enabling you to not only attract, but keep employees?
I have to say, besides the rising food costs, the number two thing is, and I told my husband when, I pretty much sold off my restaurants in New York. I was lucky that my husband told me when everyone said it was going to be a 2-week shutdown, he's like, you're looking about at a year. So you better really readjust. And I made difficult decisions at the time that saved me. And a few years later, when I found this beautiful location in Coral Gables, My husband's like, oh, just open it up. I'm like, I have 3 children at home. Do I need to babysit 58 more? Because that's what the restaurant business is. It's babysitting. And, so many people left the service industry during the pandemic and didn't return. So labor is so difficult. It has been a very painful process. And I found that slowly over time, I would really pretty much anyone who was seasoned or managers didn't really work out for me. And it got to a point where I said, okay, are you going to show up to work? Are you on drugs? And do you care if you have a job? I mean, that's how bad it got. And slowly I earmarked these young kids that would not have had the opportunity, that didn't have the experience, but that cared and that were driven and wanted to learn. So now I've built a very small core team of these kids. I had to pay the price because I'm teaching them as I go, everything. But that's been a very difficult thing. And now it's about creating a culture of caring. I am having a Memorial Day party for my employees next week. So I think it's really important to know that I'm present and that I care, where a lot of bosses don't. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it any better. That's why I asked you the question. So it's,
Yeah.
You have to do that. You in some aspects are a unicorn in the business, right? You do well at so many different aspects of the business, but typically chefs can be labeled as more creative, more artistic, but then there's also the business side of it to be able to run. And sometimes the two don't always go hand in hand. So how have you been able to still remain your, creative and put out food that you're proud of, but also being conscious of the business side of the restaurant?
Yeah, I think that I definitely wear both hats because I started in front of the house. So I understand what it means to, tell the chef, cut food costs and blah, 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 blah. And then I understand being in the kitchen and the importance of creativity and balancing all of that. And I think that I have both sides, and that's what's made me, unique. But I always tell people it is restaurant business. It is a business. So you have so many people sometimes that just think if they have a talented chef, they're going to be successful. And it's important, but it doesn't mean you're going to make a viable business. So you have to have both. And I look at the numbers all the time. I hated numbers growing up. I hated math growing up, but now it's become my best friend. Yeah. But then I also understand the importance of, treating the chefs to pretty plates and things, because you want that creativity. And that is what's going to bring people back too, especially in the world of Instagram today, where everyone videos every dish today. It's all about, how it looks, and they don't even care if it tastes good as long as smoke is coming out of it. I mean, it's crazy.
It drives me nuts. I go out to eat and I look around and people, a lot of times, are not enjoying the food. The first thing they do, they're taking their phone out and they start taking pictures of everything, and they're post. And I hear my mother's voice ringing in my head. Eat the food while it's hot. Enjoy it.
Exactly. I have a thing about eating the food while it's hot. My husband knows that. I don't like when the food gets cold. Yeah, it's true.
Well, you've opened up many, many, many restaurants in your life, and there's a difference between starting out when you were relatively unknown, when you opened Bellini, to now you're a celebrity chef and you opened Noma Beach. What's the difference between opening a restaurant as someone that's not known in the business to someone that's a celebrity in the business? Is it more pressure, less pressure, or just a different kind of pressure?
In some ways, I think it's harder because you're living up to a certain thing. And for me, it's particularly hard because my home base was New York City. So I didn't have the contacts here. And, Miami in particular is a very local relational town, and they don't like outsiders. So it's taken a while for me to one by one overcome them. And I got a lot of press in the beginning, but it didn't really matter to them. So that was a very interesting learning curve for me that I understood. And I am a Miamian now. I've been here for 5 years. I'm completely, inculcated in this community. The restaurant's 2 miles from my house. I wanted something that I really was an extension of my home. So it's been in a lot of ways harder because they have a certain impression and they expect things to be the same way as New York. And I can't create New York or that time. I mean, I was in New York in the golden age of New York when I saw it, when it was, when we were growing up, when we were in high school, New York was not good. And then when Giuliani and Bloomberg came, it was just cleaned up, and I was there for that whole beautiful renaissance of New York. So, and it was amazing, and I had access to so much great food. And by the way, finding great food today is really hard. Sourcing quality food is very, very difficult. Finding wild fish is very difficult. So things like that are difficult, but like I said, I'm used to people having a preconceived notion of me, and it's okay. I roll with it. I roll with it.
Look, there's always going to be the vocal minority. They like to talk, and a lot of times it's just envy and jealousy, and sometimes they're just not happy with their own lives, so they try to pick apart everybody else's. When I first got on Facebook many years ago, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Then I realized it was a place
And
where
you started reading it?
yeah, they lie about their lives and how one. I said, wait a second. I know that's not the case. So, it's, I guess, whatever makes life better for people. I don't know. I try to stay away from that nowadays. In fact, I have this thing with my wife. I look back and it'll show you your old memories on Facebook. And I'll read to her. I go, you want to know what Cress Diglio said 12 years ago? And I said, and then we laugh and I go, what in the world why was I posting these things? So,
I know.
You learn.
I know.
You
I
learn.
know.
But
the nice thing is Facebook was a great way to reconnect with people from our past, which is nice, like us from grammar school. So I think that's been lovely to see.
Yeah, I agree. We got to take the good and take the bad with the good sometimes, but we'll focus on the good. So a couple more questions before we end this, because I could chat with you all day, but I know you're very busy. And so
Sure.
what advice would you give someone starting out in the restaurant business today, or someone who's in the restaurant business that's struggling?
Someone starting today, you really have to understand and study the importance of digital marketing, because platforms like Facebook and Google are wildly important and can so impact you. So you have to set it up correctly with the right people. So do a lot of research to find the right people knowledgeable and protect your online reputation, because it's really, really, really important. So don't underestimate how massively important that has become. It really has been. So I've had to really school up on that in the past few years. Realize that it's difficult, but if you are passionate about it, I think I will always encourage somebody to go for it, and to make sure you find the things that you're not good at. Don't ignore it. If you're not good at numbers and don't like them, doesn't mean you can ignore them. Find someone that you trust to watch it out for you and to hold yourself accountable. Because I think as a small business owner, we have no one holding us to self accountable. So even, accountability coaches are really, really good. And really important. And if you do the best and it doesn't work out, sometimes let it go, as opposed to putting bad money into good, and find another opportunity too. And having the wisdom to know when that is difficult. Yeah.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the restaurant business, but when I started the interview today, I said it's really more about life and following your passion and your dreams. And that's how I always look at your story. So what advice would you give to people listening about the importance of following their dreams and the sacrifices needed to make the dreams become a reality?
I couldn't imagine living a life where I took a different path, where I decided to stay as a lawyer, or a 9-to-5 path. Yeah, it is a huge sacrifice, but I think the biggest sacrifice is living a life and doing things that you're not passionate about. I I think that's the worst crime that you can create for your soul. And then it doesn't lead to happiness. And so I'm very passionate about what I do. And I love continuing to grow. And I love this field in particular because there's so many different avenues of growth to continue on. But I think, and also don't be afraid to mess up. I think females too are hard, like, what if? I'm like, so if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Imagine if you don't try and you live with this, like, what if, what if, what if? I'd rather try and fail instead of live with a what if. For me, there's no other way to live. To me, it's not a sacrifice. I love what I do. I love being my own boss. I couldn't imagine working for anyone. I wouldn't be good at it. And I love mentoring people. And I love food, and I love feeding people.
Well, sounds like you love it all. So my last question really was going to be, are you still as in love with the restaurant business today as you were when you first started?
If you would have asked me 6 months ago, no. I think now, yes. Miami was probably one of the hardest places I opened up. I encountered so many obstacles that I wasn't prepared for. I'm not used to. I'm used to being judged on food and service. I wasn't used to so many things that were beyond my control, but I think I am in love with it because it's like a problem that I have to solve and master. And so, yeah, I'm fighting the fight. I'm in the game.
Good for you.
Yeah, I love it.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that makes me feel good. I feel the same way about what I do. I love what I do, and challenges, they're going to come and go. So what could you do to tell people out there a little bit more about, if they're in the Miami area, your restaurant, and then the other things that you have going on that you might want to share with them about?
Sure. Well, you can follow me on Donatella Arpaia on my Instagram and my Facebook for all the updates. I am involved in Pizza Expo every year. So I have a lot of pizza guys coming to me for advice, and I'm the brand ambassador for Galbani, and I'm working on a frozen line. And you can come find me in Noma Beach at Redfish, which is the only waterfront property in Coral Gables. It's really stunning, and we do a lot of private events and weddings. Noma-beach.com. And it's where you can find me. I'm there all the time.
Well, Donatella, it's been great catching up with you. I feel like people were listening in on a conversation between a couple of old friends. It's during certain parts of the interview, but that's fine. That's what makes it fun. It's been great catching up with you, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join me today. My pleasure. It was so good to talk to you, and let's get a cocktail when you're in Miami. I'm going to take you up on that. All right. Take care. So everyone, it's been great catching up with an old friend. I guess that's one of the perks of having a podcast. You can invite people, and if they're nice enough like Donatella, they'll take time and come join you. But I want to thank Donatella again for taking time out of her busy schedule to share her story with us. I really hope you're inspired as I am, and I have always been, because it's a great story. It's not just about restaurant or the restaurant life. It's about life in general. So again, if you enjoyed this show, you'll probably enjoy a lot of the other shows we have. And so I invite you to go to ibba.org/insights, where you can subscribe to the podcast by clicking the Apple, Android, or email icons. Then you'll never have to miss another episode of IBBA Insights again. Thanks again for listening. Now go out and chase your dreams and make them a reality.